Baruch Spinoza, born on November 24th, 1632, who eventually became a 17th century Dutch philosopher, had a Jewish upbringing. He was the middle son in a prominent family of moderate means in Amsterdam's Portuguese Jewish community. His early education entailed attending the Talmud Torah school, in which he was viewed as a studious, intelligent child, considered as a potential Jewish religious leader. However, at 17, he cut short his formal studies in order to begin working in the family importing business. Gradually, though, through his early 20s, he distanced himself from the faith of his ancestors. One way in which this happened was his exposure to La Pereire's work on biblical criticism, Pre Admite. He stated, "Though I have been educated in boyhood in the accepted beliefs concerning Scripture, I have felt bound in the end to embrace other views." In his early 20s, he immersed himself in the philosophies of biblical criticism. Eventually, however, his ideas became so abstract that he was even convicted of improper teachings in the Sabbath school. These behaviors and ideas of Spinoza's became frequent, and soon he was excommunicated in July 1656. He was issued the harshest writ of herem, also known as excommunication, ever pronounced by the Sephardic community of Amsterdam. Considering the community was strictly religious, such criticism towards faith was intolerable. The community, however, did offer to rescind it, but he rejected it in the same way he rejected rewards, honors, and the chair of philosophy at the University of Heidelberg, perhaps because of the possibility that it might have in some way curbed his freedom of thought. Nonetheless, to all appearances, Spinoza was content finally to have an excuse for departing from the community and leaving Judaism behind. His faith and religious commitment were, by this point, gone. Within a few years, he left Amsterdam altogether. By 1661, he was living in Rheinsberg. While in Rheinsberg, he worked on the treatise on the emendation of the intellect, an essay on the philosophical method, and the short treatise on God, man, and his well-being, an initial but aborted effort to lay out his metaphysical, epistemological, and moral views. His critical exposition of Descartes' Principles of Philosophy, the only work he published under his own name in his lifetime, was completed in 1663. Although Spinoza did agree with Descartes' belief in favoring rationalism over empiricism, he rejected Cartesian metaphysics, objecting to three features: the transcendence of God, the conception of mind as radically distinct from matter, or mind-body dualism, and the ascription of free will both to God and to human beings. Another work of his was his scandalous theological political treatise, published anonymously, and an extensive criticism of Judaism and all religion in general. His notorious masterpiece, The Ethics, was next to be published, though he started working on it before the theological political treatise. In this work, Spinoza expresses his fundamental philosophy, metaphysics. This philosophy supported the idea that there is only one substance which is absolutely infinite, self-caused, and eternal. He calls this substance God or nature, naming them one of the same thing. Other beliefs of his covered that instead of God's judgment of you that determines your place in heaven or hell, instead, the afterlife was non-existent. And for salvation, the goal is for the mind to progress towards an intuitive understanding of God, of the whole of nature and its laws. This was paralleled through his belief in Stoicism, that you should not argue against the way things are, done so in prayer, but rather discover how and why everything is the way it is. These, what would have been considered absurd views, are expressed in the Ethics, where he tried to reinvent religion, moving it away from something based on superstition and direct divine intervention. He believed information should not solely be based on higher divine powers, but rather legitimate and rational information. As a result of all these works, many believed he was an atheist. However, Spinoza claimed he was not, saying that God was indeed material, though he was not a person or individual. That there certainly is God, because as he stated, nothing can be or be conceived without God. Many people influenced Spinoza's philosophy. A perfect teacher for Spinoza, Van den Eden taught him Latin and possibly other lessons that shaped his thinking. Van den Eden himself was a notorious freethinker, former Jesuit, and radical Democrat who likely introduced Spinoza to scholastic and modern philosophy. Additionally, Seneca, Spinoza's favorite philosopher, explained that humans are like dogs on a leash, being guided by the necessities and natural resources of nature or God. According to Spinoza, just like in his Ethics, this was the best way to understand God since he proclaimed God is nature and nature is God. Knowing and understanding this, according to Spinoza, was the key to happiness. Finally, Descartes influenced Spinoza in saying information should solely be based on rationalism, not empiricism. That sensory experience is erroneous, for instance, through hallucinations.